So now we're going to go into our afternoon keynote before lunch. And the title of the talk is Do Less, Time Management and How to Get Things Done. And who knows how to get things done better than women? And especially mothers. There's a book, I think it's called The Myth of the Nice Girl by Fran Hauser, and she talks in there about wanting to have mothers work for her because moms know how to get things done. She'd much rather have a mom work for her than some dude who doesn't want to go home. So excited to hear this keynote. So I would like to introduce author Kate Northrup, author of Do Less.
I just use this? Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, hi. So the one thing I always knew for sure is that I wanted to be a mother. It's the only thing I knew for sure. And I assumed that because I was raised by a holistic OBGYN and because I'm smart and because I read all the books and watched all the documentaries and I had the right practitioners and I had a doula and I had worked on my mindset and I had applied myself during my pregnancy, that I could create the perfect birth. And I also assumed that because mothering had always been in my heart as my dream, that I would naturally feel good at it and that it would naturally feel easy to me. I just assumed, like, if my body knew how to do this thing, that the whole thing would flow. And I did get pregnant easily, which I'm very grateful for. And that was where the easy part began and ended. When I was pregnant with my first, I was so exhausted. I've never been so exhausted in my life. I worked, I do run my own company, and I could not work full-time. I could barely function. I was so exhausted. And then I had a planned home birth. I labored for 12 hours. It was really hard and really beautiful, and then my baby was coming out butt first, and in the state of Maine, you're not allowed to deliver a breech baby at home, and at that point, I was 10 centimeters dilated, so you can't walk with the head coming out, and so the paramedics came, and I was transferred in an ambulance, and by the time we got to the hospital, she was coming out one leg up and one leg down. And my mother, the OBGYN, reminded me, honey, a foot is not a good dilator. And so I had an emergency C-section. And at that point, that was, of course, a great choice, but very traumatic through the whole experience. And then when my baby came out, she wasn't breathing, and it was a whole thing. And I won't get into the story because I know it would be triggering for many in the room. But she had a really bad infection. And so having thought that I was going to orchestrate this, orgasmic, incredible home birth, like really pleasurable situation, and then ending up in the hospital for 7 days with a baby with an IV in her head, getting IV antibiotics twice a day, I completely lost my mind. I mean, I definitely did a dance with postpartum psychosis, and had it not been for a wonderful support system, I don't know how I would have gotten through that. And then we came home, and everyone kept saying, "Oh, it's gonna get easier." Don't worry, it gets easier, and it did not get easier. It still hasn't, turns out, 2 kids in. But what happened is my baby girl developed severe eczema so bad that she would wake herself up every 10 minutes at night crying, making herself bleed. And we went to, as you can imagine that we do as mothers, we did literally everything. And that first year of her life, I saw somebody post on Facebook that her baby was 9 months old and every day had been more amazing than the last. And it was everything she had ever wanted. And I was just like, she is either lying or living on a different planet than me. Because honestly, the first year of motherhood for me sucked. It was hell. and I hated it. Not every moment. Some moments were really beautiful, but a lot of it was really terrible. Now, the reason I am telling you this is because 1 year after my baby girl was born, so my husband and I run our own company. There was no maternity, paternity leave. We have a small company. It's us and like 11 freelancers. So there was nobody paying for anything for me to do whatever, and so we just kind of figured it out, made it work. I didn't have any child care for the first 3 months, and then I had only 10 hours of child care the subsequent months of the first year of her life. And we ended up with, tons of medical bills and all of these things that we did not expect, because turns out home birth is quite inexpensive. Hospital birth, especially emergency C-sections with a baby stay in the hospital, is quite expensive. So a year later, we sat in our accountant's office, the mahogany table, the whole deal. My boobs are like ready to burst, right? Because I'm there without my baby. And we realized, as we looked at the numbers, in our company, while we had both been working less than half the amount we had ever worked previously, because we had been going through this gauntlet of parenthood this first year with this sick baby, that we had made the same amount of revenue, working less than half the amount of time. And while I didn't want to go through what I went through requiring me to work less than half the amount, I thought, well, what the heck have I been doing my entire adult life, working all of these hours when I could have made the same amount of money working half as much? And so that's where the idea of do less was born, because I thought, certainly if I could do this by accident, under force, then perhaps I could do it on purpose. And I am not that special, which means other women could do this as well. So I went back and I looked at what did I do differently that made it so that I could make as much money in half as much time. Because are we all not working so hard because we assume that we need to do that in order to feed our families and pay our mortgages and keep our jobs and keep our businesses up and running? Yes, work hard, get ahead. Work hard, you'll succeed. Work more, you'll succeed, right? That's what we've all been fed. I was fed that as well. I grew up in New England, hardcore Puritan work ethic. And I had found evidence completely of the opposite during this year. And so I looked at what it was. What was the difference? And I realized for the first time in my life, while I had always thought this idea of listening to your body was kind of a cool idea, and sometimes I would, practice listening to my intuition and tune in, I didn't think that was a good idea to run my business. I thought that was a good idea to, make me make dating decisions or decide on where I was going on vacation or what I might want to wear, but not major things like what feeds my family. But I realized during that year of the pregnancy, for sure, and then this year of motherhood, I had made an entire human being without giving it a single conscious thought. A single conscious thought was not required to make the liver, to make the ears, to make sure she had toenails. I didn't have to put it on a to-do list. My body had done it on its own. And I had done the most productive thing of my life without even looking like I was doing anything. Amazing. And then I had kept her alive for 6 months just with my boobs. Also, not a conscious thought required. I mean, yes, the nursing, that was a whole thing, which I won't get into. But it happened, and so I looked at that and I thought, wow, that's fascinating. For the first time in my life, I had been forced to let my body lead through this experience of becoming a mother. And I also noticed some other things. And so if you also would like to make just as much money, or let's say this, get as good results, whatever the result is, right? So if we want to get as good results while working less and having less stress, first of all, I can't tell you that much in 20 minutes. So it is in my book, which is upstairs, but I'm about to give you 3 things, okay? Because this is what I wrote about in my book. This is what I practice within my Origin membership with other women, and this is what I mentor women in my mastermind program. So here are 3 things. Number 1, men cycle on a 24-hour time cycle. Women cycle on a 28-day cycle. Our world is set up on a 24-hour cycle. It is set up for the way that men experience the world. This is not surprising. We live in a patriarchy, okay? But over here, women have a completely different experience of time. Therefore, why do you think it feels like we are trying to put ourselves into a suit, a position, a situation that doesn't fit us? It's because the entire work culture was created for the lived experience of being in a male body. It is not taken into consideration the lived experience of having a uterus and ovaries and a vagina. The very things that make human life possible are not honored, are not considered. They're not talked about. It's considered really weird if you do. And so, thing number 1, know that you are operating on a 28-ish day cycle. And it has these 4 distinct seasons that are exactly the same as the seasons on planet Earth. We go through them every single month, and they each have this incredible purpose from a productivity standpoint. And so if you can begin to track where you are in your cycle and begin to learn what the 4 phases are, because here's what we're taught about periods. Oh, you're gonna need a tampon, and also don't have sex on this 1 day, right? Or this 5-day window. What? The system of our bodies that is a complete miracle, responsible for repopulating the planet with humans, that's all and also, don't talk about it. And also, definitely don't ever let anyone know you're having it. This thing that over 50% of us have at some point in our lives. That is the reason we're all here, okay? So get to know your cycle and the fact that it has these 4 different distinct experiences. And when you do that, you can reorganize yourself so that you can live in the season that you're in your own monthly experience. And when you do the kind of thing during that time of the month that you actually feel like doing and that you are hormonally wired to do, you get it done way faster, way more efficiently, and with far less friction. So for example, in the springtime season, that's the follicular phase, it's the week after your period. This is the springtime. It's the time when you feel like planning things. You feel like initiating things. You feel like taking action. So that's a really good time to do those things. During your period, you tend to be lower energy, more inward. You're the most intuitive possible because your brain has the most interconnectivity during that time between your left and right hemispheres. You are the best decision maker you could possibly be during that time. So I follow these women who run a program called the Red School in the UK, and they say for big decisions, instead of sleeping on it, to bleed on it, which is such a weird thing to say, but it really works, okay? So bring your decisions into that time. And there's so many different ways that you can do this, and I have written about it in my book, and I also give away tons of resources around this on my website. But get to know that it will change your experience because you will actually be managing your time and energy according to how women experience time and energy, as opposed to trying to fit yourself into the male standard, which you're never going to fit into because it wasn't designed for you. And you will get more productive when you do this. You will get the things that matter done far more effectively with far less energy expended, which is so exciting. Number 2, I realized during that time, that pregnancy and that first year of motherhood, I was forced, because I was on my knees flat out, like having the worst time ever, to ask for help with my needs for the first time really ever. I was absolutely the girl. Like, I moved myself to New York City in a station wagon. It didn't even occur to me to ask my parents to help me out, with the move. I just packed up and left and just showed up. It didn't occur to me that I could get help with the hard things. I just always thought I needed to do them myself. And during that year, I realized that there was no way I was going to be able to make it through with my own sanity intact if I didn't ask for support. And there's been a lot of conversation around this. I loved what Jill had to say on this particular topic about the village, but here's what I want to leave you with on this note. Needing help is not a sign of weakness. Needing help is a sign of being human. We all need help all the time. And the more we ask for help, I recommend asking early. So ask before you need the help. Like, look at your week at the beginning of the week and see, where might I need support this week? And then ask early, because when you ask early, then you're more likely to ask kindly. And it's really so much better and so much easier to help people who are kind, right? You are not fun to help in the moment when you need your help, and God damn it, husband, like, why won't you just, like, what's wrong? You know? Not helpful, not fun. But if you ask early, it gives you space to ask kindly. And then finally, ask often, because it needs to become a daily habit. Not an exception, not for crisis, not for moments of high chaos. No, you're not easy to help in those moments. You are easy to help when you ask often. So it's like, oh, hey, Mom, there's going to be this 15-minute window where, in between kid drop-off and whatever, can you just, be at my house during that time? Because there may be this overlap where my kids, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So, I ask for small ways to be helped throughout the week to give extra breathing room, because I deserve that. And you deserve that. You deserve to not be running on fumes. And you are so much better for all the people in your life when you are helped, because then you can help them, right? And then the final thing is, because I had zero bandwidth during that first year, I stopped trying to prove my worth through doing things, because I couldn't anymore. Because my baby's life depended on me actually being present with her. And it occurred to me, looking back, how deeply ingrained in our culture it is to believe that our worth is synonymous with what we do and how much we get done. And here's the irony, ladies. The more we are trying to prove through doing, the less effective we are. Because busy does not mean you are getting results, my friend. Busy just means you're like this all the time, right? It doesn't mean anything. A lot of movement is not an indicator of results. So, those are the things. Know your cycle, track your cycle, align with your cycle. Ask for help early, often, kindly. And stop trying to prove your worth by what you do. Know that your worth is who you are. So I will leave you with this, because I know everybody's hungry and it's time for lunch. And I would love to meet you upstairs, where I'll be signing books during the lunch break. This is my final blessing and prayer for all of us. It is to let the amount that you moved your body this week be enough. To let the amount of effort that you put into that project be enough. To let the amount of time you're spending truly being with your kids be enough. To let the amount of sex you're having be enough. To let it all be enough. Because the world needs you present, not busy. And it's enough. Thank you.